All right, Thursday morning, I'm gonna go over this Excel file here, and then later I'll make a video to do a couple of tricky ones in my Econ lab. But if you go into the Blackboard, into coursework, our week is week 4. And then here, this is this file, this quiz 6B Excel file. I'm just gonna go create a couple of formulas here to help you with working with this perfect competition. So here I have this file open here, and again, this is looking at an individual firm in this perfect competition. So remember from the other day in class, this is in chapter 6, perfect competition. Again, they have the market on the left where you get the supply and demand. Again, demand is downward sloping for the whole market, which sets the price for the individual firm, which is this graph to the right. So we're basically creating the values for the individual firm and see if it's making a profit or not. And what happens if price changes? Because again, individual firms in perfect competition are price takers. They take what the market decides. So back here in this Excel file, and again, we got the output here. Produce one of this, whatever we're producing. Let's say we're producing scarves for just the fun of it. 1 scarf, 2 scarves, 3 scarves. Our fixed costs, again, are the same all the way down. It's like rent we pay. Fixed costs are the same in the short run. Right? In the long run, of course, fixed costs can change. Your rent can go up or maybe go down. Variable costs change with the level of output. So I have to buy, let's say, wool. I have to buy my materials. So instead of probably 1, it's probably really 100, but it still works for us in this example. So 280 is our total variable cost if we produce 1, 500 if we produce 2. So what we're going to do is we're going to create all of these formulas here to figure out our profit. And right now our price here, I'm going to use this value here over in yellow here. This is our 300 we're selling. So total cost here, I'm going to start in this cell here. The total cost is, of course, the fixed cost plus the variable cost. So it's 0 output. It's a simple formula. Equal this 200 cell plus, click on the total variable cell, B3 plus C3. Of course, comes out the 200, my total cost when I'm producing nothing because I have no variable costs. But then I could just throw it down, right? Everyone know the autofill here. I click, double click there, and I'll chuck it all the way down. So there are my total costs for the different outputs. So basically, we want to figure out what's our profit maximizing output for the individual firm. And are we making a profit? Are we doing a loss? Should we shut down or should we keep going? Are some of the things we're going to examine here. So the average fixed cost, as the textbook said, this is basically my fixed cost divided by the output, right? So at 0 output, I'm going to take the 200 divided by 0. So as everyone knows, if I take the 200 here, my fixed cost, this is my average fixed cost. So the average fixed cost for 0 quantity is the 200, B3 divided by the 0. And this will come out, of course, to NA, not applicable, or divided by 0, because we can't divide something by nothing. It is impossible. But if I throw it down, I will get the numbers because, again, just double click here on the check your formulas always pays a double click. So here, if I'm looking at the 3 output, my total fixed cost is 200 divided by the 3, which will give me that 6.66. So I'm just going to escape out of here. And let me change all these numbers. And again, all of these numbers here are actually going to be dollars. So I'm just going to highlight this whole range. I'm going to make it a dollar sign. I'm not going to worry about pennies. So I'm going to decrease my decimals so it looks nicer. So the averaged variable cost, again, same sort of thing. I'm just going to take my total variable cost, which is 0 for 0 output, divided by 0, which is, again is going to give me another divide by 0 error. But then I'm just going to throw it down. And then why did it not do my dollar signs? Did I do that wrong? Gotta do each one. And then the the average total cost. What's the average total cost at a certain amount of output? I take my total cost here, 200 or D3, divided by my output A3, and again I just throw this down. Why do I always do the wrong decimal place? I'll always do that, I think. So here is my, again, average total cost. So average fixed cost, average variable cost, average total cost. And we're going to use these values basically to see how much we should produce at to do our profit maximization. But first we have to, of course, figure out our marginal cost. And then marginal cost, again, is what's the cost for each additional unit created. So at 0 output, I don't have a marginal cost because there's nothing before 0. But between 0 and 1, what's the marginal cost to create this first unit of output? What's the change in the total cost? So it goes from 200 to 480. So I know the marginal cost there is, what, 280, right? So let's just do a formula that does it. That's going to do equal. I'm going to do my 480. Again, that's my total cost for one output minus the one up above. And there's the marginal cost for producing 280, right? And if I throw it down, fine, there it works. I'm going to just do a quick check again. I'm going to the output 6. So between 5 and 6, my marginal cost is should be between these two variables. Nope, these two total cost variables. Yeah, and it is, right? So it always pays if you copy a formula down to just double click on one and check and see if it is using the right values, right? And yeah, this is the total cost for 5 is 1,300. The total cost for 6 is 1,500. So we're just going to escape out of there. And then we're just going to do the marginal revenue. And again, marginal revenue, remember, if I go back to the textbook here, this is page, what, 143, right? Notice my marginal revenue is the same, doesn't vary with the level of output because I am a price taker. I take what the market gives me. So back in the Excel spreadsheets, it's just for each unit of output sold, I'm going to get the $300 here. So I'm just going to do equal here, even at 0. Right? There is my marginal price, which is 300. I'm just going to absolute this, right? Because I'm going to copy it down because I want 300 all the way down. And then where you're absolute with the F4 key, or type in the dollar signs if you want. And then autofill this down. And we just get the 300 all the way down. So and again, just double click on one of these. And again, here's, remember, it's with the absolute, always refers back to this M3. So total revenue. Total revenue is going to be how much I sell, the output times the selling price, right? So total revenue is, again, I'm selling, down here for number 2, it's going to be this 2 times 300, right? So if output of 2, I'm getting 300 per one output. So this will be 600 eventually. So here it's just equal for this first one. It should come out to 0 for my total revenue for the first one because it's 0 output, of course, I'm making no money. So I take the 300, this I3, excuse me, times the output of 0. Enter it in. There's my total revenue is nothing for my first, it's 0 output, but if I throw it down, boom, my total revenue goes up and up and up. And then here's where economics comes in. Total revenue is going up and up and up. Should I produce 10? No, that would not be a good idea to produce 10 because that wouldn't be for profit maximization. Your total revenue would be maximized, but not the profit maximized, because we have to fill as one more key column, right? What's my profit? So over here in K3, if I'm producing 0, right, what's my profit? Of course, I'm going to be losing money. So profit is always going to be total revenue, right? What I take in total revenue minus what I pay out in total costs, right? J3 minus D3. And it comes out as negative 200, right? Of course, if I produce nothing, I'm getting no income, but I got to pay out my fixed costs. So I'm just going to throw this down, and I can see my profit maximization. I get a choice of the two 240s, but remember, here's the key one, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. This is profit maximization. I'm just going to put this in green. There's my, again, profit maximizing. MR equals MC, MC equals MR, whichever way we want to do it. There is my highest profit. So this is by output I should produce. I should produce 7 output. Again, if I produce 10 output, my total revenue will be higher, but then I go in the negative profits. So there's that key formula again. So, but let's just take a look and see what happens when price changes. Again, if I look back at the textbook, again, we just created the graph, the numbers for this graph here for the individual firm, but if something changes with supply and demand, right? For the whole industry, the price is going to change for the individual firm. And then good things or bad things can happen, of course. So we're going to take a look at some bad scenarios. So if my price goes down, let's say to, what I got here? So I got 3 possible prices here. So I'm just going to put a little label down here just so I can, possible prices. This is what a lot of farmers do. They have to worry about what happens if the price goes down when they harvest. So they have their spreadsheets all set up to figure out if they're going to make profit or not. So if my price, again, M3 is the one I got to change, right? Because that will change this column I, and it will adjust all the formulas. So if I change this to 275, right? Notice, right? I got to get rid of my green here now because this is not MR equals MC anymore. We got to find the next closest one where MR equals MC, and that's right here, right? At 6 output. So this is now where MR is closest to MC or equals, and again, my highest profit is 90. I'm still making a profit here. So still doing well here. But if the price drops more, so let's see, there's overabundance of scarves on the markets, or again, the textbook talks about t-shirts, the same sort of thing. Again, this is pure competition. So if my numbers drop to 240, right, then notice there's no place I'm making a profit. So let me get rid of my green here on this one, figure out where my profit maximization is, where MR is closest to MC, and it's right here at 5 output. So I'm losing money, right? This is, we're making a negative 100 profit, but we would still keep going with this company because look what would happen if we shut down. Our output would go to 0, correct? And if our output goes to 0, then we're losing $200. So we would, again, lose less money by keep producing. So in the short run, we would keep producing this product, even though we're losing money, because it would cost more to shut down because we're still covering our variable costs. The thing is, we're still producing some revenue that will cover our variable costs. So it still pays to keep going in the short run. In the long run, we'd have to shut down because you couldn't keep it going. But in the short run, it would cost more to shut down. If things go really bad, 200, then notice where MR equals MC is right here. And then 200 at output 4, notice our profit is negative 280. We're losing $280. This we got to shut down, right? Because we would lose less money by shutting down. We're going to lose just $200 as opposed to lose $280 at profit maximization at output 4, because we're not covering our variable costs on this one. So this is the one where we'd have to close it down. So I'm going to do a quick graph on this stuff. So this is a little tricky graph, so if you can't do it, I won't take off points on it. But I just want to show this thing graphically. Excuse me. And then I'll have this spreadsheet in Blackboard after the due dates with the graph, so you can always take a look at it before the test. So I want to graph output, so I'm just going to click on output, but I don't want to do the 0 because that would really not help my graph at all. So I'm clicking on output, and then I'm just going to hold the control key down because I want to select cells that are not touching. So I click once on output, and then with the control key down, I'm highlighting 1 through 10. I also want to graph my average variable cost, because again, if I can't cover my average variable cost, I gotta close down. I'm doing my average total costs. I click once on that, and again, just highlight these numbers down below, and marginal costs, and marginal revenue. This is that graph that we see in a textbook. So notice this is what should be highlighted, and just don't highlight anything else again. And it should probably take a couple times to do this, usually with me, see if I get it right. I'm doing a line graph. There's my line graph, but notice it graphs output down on the x-axis. I don't want that, so let me just, up here at the top, I'm going to select my data, and then I click on output here, and I'm going to remove this. Right? So here's my charts now, the way I want it. Let me get rid of the chart title because I don't really, squishes my graph up. You click on it and hit your delete key, right? I'm changing my y-axis because I want to see more of the curves in it, so I'm going to start my minimum at 150. Something you do with graphs all the time. So I'm just going to double click on the y-axis and change my minimum to 150. Right, and there's my graph. So I'm just going to move it over to the right here. And let's just take a look at this thing graphically. Again, if I go back to my original price of 300, right? Boom, there. Again, if I look where MR equals MC, let me draw a picture. Here is, again, when you look at these graphs, that's the point to look at, right? Where, again, MC is this purple line going up. And then marginal revenue, of course, is that straight line at 300, because I changed my price to 300, back to 300. This is my output of 7, right? And this is my profit maximization, this point here. And again, take a look, this is above the, again, the average total cost, which is the green line. So everything above here is profit between this point here, or the profit maximization, above the green point, this is profit. And if I go back to the textbook, I believe this is on page 137, shows us something similar. Yeah, there's something similar here, because this one, notice point A here, this is where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. And it's above the average total cost curve. So this area in here is profit, right? And again, if firms are making profit in a perfectly competitive market, more firms will come into this particular market. Again, more people would start. Again, we're making scarves and we're making excess profit with these simple scarves. More scarf manufacturers will come in, and basically that will eventually bring the price down because more supply will happen. This is how capitalism works, right? If we're making excess profits, it'll be attractive, and because it's a perfectly competitive market. And one of the descriptions of a perfectly competitive market is easy entry for firms. So I'm going to go back to the Excel spreadsheet for a second. Let's take a look where the price goes back down to what, 240. if we go to 240, notice my blue line then changes, my marginal revenue. Everything else stays the same. Then, again, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost is right there. And notice that we are in between the average total cost and the average variable cost, right? So here, we're not making profit, right? Again, at this point of 5, or close to 5, where MR equals MC, our profit is negative on 100, but we would still operate because if we close down, we would lose $200 in this period. So in the short run, we would keep going because it would be less of a loss. In the long run, of course, we'd have to shut down if discontinued. And then the worst case scenario, if the price drops dramatically, boom, then I got to move my MR equals MC. Always, again, when you take the test, find where MR equals MC. That's the key point. Now, where my profit maximization, it's below my, again, the variable cost, then I got to close down, and I can see it over here. Here's my profit maximization point is 280, negative 280. If I close down, I'll only lose 200. So this, again, if I'm below my average variable cost, we have to close down, right? It makes more economic sense. So hopefully you can reproduce this spreadsheet. Again, if you can't do the graph, I can understand that. The formula should be fairly straightforward. So give it a whirl, and then just plop it into Blackboard, and I'll take a look and check your formulas. And I'll do another video on my Econ Lab.